everyone. Hello. How are you doing? I hope that all is well with you. And I would like to today um, talk about, as the title suggests, some misconceptions about the practice, about what we know about spirituality, uh, specifically subtle body, chakras, kundalini, and so on. Although, of course, whatever we do about our spiritual growth, if we are intending to experience spiritual growth, whatever we do at first is really good. It's really good just to be looking in that direction. For whatever reason, whether it is because we're emotionally feeling balanced or have emotional difficulties in some ways, or mentally we need to feel stronger and more empowered about what's going on in our lives, or maybe there are other reasons that we can talk about during this short video. I will start with a short introduction just for the ones who have not met me yet. I am Monique Rebelle. I'm a spiritual teacher and author of this book, Transcendence Calling, The Power of Kundalini Rising and Spiritual Enlightenment. Right now I'm writing a new book called 7 Steps to a Better Human. Our Multidimensional Consciousness Overview and Basic Practices. And today we'll mention a few of those basic practices. I'm also a painter. I've been a painter for many years. Okay, so let's start with those misconceptions. And just to be clear, what I do is, what I teach comes directly from my own experience that was spontaneous, happened many years ago, and happened because of a traumatic experience that I had. I was very depressed, I became suicidal, and as I decided to take my life, I suddenly had this unbelievable, magical experience that I didn't know anything about. Later I learned that that is called Kundalini Rising. And that's what my book is about my life before the experience itself, and then my insights from the experience. And in this book, in this first book, I present an outline of the system that I was able to observe of our multidimensional consciousness system. This system is very much, in many ways, like what we already know, subtle body system with kundalini and chakras. However, I present that whole system and it's the way it works from my own viewpoint, and it changes a lot about how we are approaching the whole issue of chakras and kundalini. I always teach from the bottom up. So in my course the main course that I teach, Higher Self, a course in our multidimensional consciousness system, I start with an overview, describe the main elements of the subtle body, and in practices, in short little exercises, we learn to actually find in our present life those dimensions of perception. The premise I introduce is that our life is nothing but Kundalini, experiencing life through the dimensions of perception. And Kundalini is our individual consciousness. It's the unit of consciousness that each of us is. That's the spirit. Consciousness is spirit, and we are consciousness. That is, each of us has our own consciousness. That means everything that you are, everything that you feel, everything that you know, everything that you experience, remember, everything you can think of, it's all your consciousness. It includes your body. So, as an individual unit of consciousness, we have access to those 7 different dimensions of perception. Each of them works on a different principle, and during the course that I teach, I help to establish practices which will allow to access each dimension through chakras, which are the gates to those dimensions, and work on optimizing our chakras so we have as much as possible access to the dimensions. As is right now, for most of us, the first 3 dimensions are prominent, and their dominance is what is ego. So let's start with misconceptions about the first dimension, which is the material world. We already know from our conventional knowledge that there are 3 dimensions of length, width, and depth, but I consider those sub-dimensions of the material dimension. In material dimension, we have everything material, including things we can see under microscope, bacteria and atoms, and the tiniest particles, and of course galaxies, cosmos, and those huge, enormous, unfathomable spaces that we can't even figure out, right? We can see them though under a telescope. So our bodies belong to the material world. And what that means as far as spiritual growth and working, practicing in order to grow spiritually, the misconception that we have is often that all there is for us to do is to have good nutrition, proper food, we have to be vegan, we have to do yoga, we have to wear certain clothes, we can't wear high heels, or we can't do, there are so many restrictions of what we should do and what we shouldn't. That first dimension is enormous, and if we start thinking about what kind of nutrition we should use in order to evolve spiritually, there for sure will be vegan diet and vegetarian diet, but it's not something that will necessarily help us a lot. This is because this is just a small part of our consciousness, of our whole being. So we are not the body. we are an individual unit of consciousness. And in order to be able to deal with the entirety of our consciousness, we need to practice just being that individual unit of consciousness, so we don't think we are the body that needs to be fed in a certain way. We need to be conscious, know that we are the consciousness that is magical, that is able to do anything, but as it is, it has created the subtle body, and it lodged itself in between the first and the second chakra, and in the physical body, in the sacral area, that consciousness often forgets or doesn't even realize very well that it is an immortal soul. So it's very good to practice yoga, it's very good to work out in many ways, but that's not everything. Let's go over to the second chakra and what to do in order to release the charge that's in this chakra. And first of all, I need to let you know that you may know about the second chakra being sexual, creative, and emotional. And that's not my experience. In my understanding, the second chakra is only emotional, but the individual unit of consciousness, our Kundalini, is survival, sexual, and creative. Therefore, if you are thinking about clearing the second chakra, forget about sexuality and forget about creativity. Kundalini, our true being, our true self, becomes survival, sexual, and creative as soon as it lodges itself in the body, in order to protect it, in order to continue its existence through generations, and in order to create, because creativity is the essence of spirituality, the essence of our consciousness, and all consciousness is creativity. There are specific exercises to clear that second chakra, which is normally for us with our lifestyles, with our modern civilization, we are constantly experiencing emotional triggers on daily basis, and emotions will always be there, no matter what state of spiritual growth we are at. Emotions are always going to be there. They're not going to disappear. It's only our ability to deal with them that's going to help us with overwhelming emotions, with lingering emotions, with emotions that come back to bother us. There are ways of dealing with them, and those ways are truly amazingly helping in clearing the chakra from the bunch of the whole stack of emotions that we normally have. the third chakra. That's the mind. It's very, very important to us. This is the mind that tries to rule our whole life. It never succeeds, and it always tries to upstage, especially the information that we get from the upper chakras. The reason the mind is so important to us is because it has a sub-dimension of time. So we create all of these structures, mental structures, that accompany us throughout our lives, that we use, we believe in, and they also make us stuck in who we think we are. What is the most prevalent misconception about spiritual growth is that the more we know, the better it is. But spiritual growth is not about knowing more and more and more and getting more and more knowledge packed into this chakra. It is about going deeper and deeper. And it is about being as pure as we can be, as having that consciousness of our Kundalini there, being there with it, knowing that we are immortal and we exist without the body and without everything that's going on around us. If we keep attention on that, there are exercises to, of course, to identify your Kundalini. And I can share them with you later, but today we won't have enough time to do it. But once we have that approach, then the power of that third chakra that opens us up to the third dimension of mind and will is going to be seen more as only a part of our consciousness. As we live through this lifetime and we learn things, we put them all into the third chakra, and instead of going deeper into who we are growing our ego. So, oh, I already know about chakras, so I already know about all that stuff, yeah. But that's only mental process, which doesn't take you anywhere as far as spiritual growth, because this mind is logical, linear, and concludes through identification. And in order to go deeper, this mind needs to calm down. Our thoughts that are coming all the time, those thoughts have to calm down and be slower. Eventually, if possible, release all of those thoughts. They can be released only in present time, in now. And the process of releasing them depends on our ability to narrow our focus. And once we narrow the focus to one thought, then we can surrender that thought. If that thought is surrendered, we can find ourselves in present time, and then all our thoughts get released, and this chakra clears up. So what happens then our Kundalini is able to move up because there is no charge here. If we keep on just accumulating information, it's going to be worse and worse and worse. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. It's not that if we are looking for something, we're looking for the right, maybe right teacher, or right book, or right information. Of course, we need to look for it. But to settle with just knowledge and assume that that knowledge is going to take us somewhere, that's a misconception. We need to be able to narrow our focus to one thought. There are practices that help with that as well. The fourth chakra, opening us up to the fourth dimension of eternal, universal, sacred love. Yes, that's the practice for it is called bhakti, devotion. And it's very important and wonderful, and it does cultivate our fourth chakra, because the upper ones we need to cultivate and the lower ones we need to train. It's much easier to cultivate than it is to train, because training requires discipline. However, with the fourth chakra, we can just enjoy maybe gathering together with others and rituals that allow us to feel, to tap into that dimension. Just there is one thing, that universal sacred love is not about loving what we choose to love, loving the people that we like especially, or loving even just ourselves, which is sometimes such a challenge, right? It's not only loving ourselves, it's not only loving a beautiful flower or a great view or our favorite people. It's actually loving everything, absolutely everything. And that's one of the misconceptions, because it is much more challenging to love what we ordinarily, with this second chakra, emotional, and with this mind, which will logically tell us, oh, this is awful, don't like it, you shouldn't like it at all. This chakra, when it's open, is free to love, and the power of love is to love the whole world, everything, the whole universe. The fifth one, and that what I said about the fourth chakra goes to all of the chakras, and I talked about the first one. It's not, usually working on one chakra is not enough, because for most of us, we need to work on especially the second and third, which is quite a chore sometimes. And then depending on which one we have more developed, we still have to work on the upper chakras, because our Kundalini needs that passage. It needs to go through. If the chakra is not developed, if it's just closed up, little one, Kundalini is going to have a very hard time going through it. So we are preparing for Kundalini to ascend. If Kundalini can ascend, we can reach the seventh chakra, And if it's developed, it can open up and unite us with all there is. And then there is no need for doubts or questions. Then we can balance out our life and help others to balance their lives and see the values that are so important for our evolution and so important for our happiness too. But that's unfortunately, that's a secondary thing. Consciousness is not just human. Consciousness is all there is. And it's another misconception to assume that consciousness is human. So let's talk about the fifth one. That's a that's a dimension. The fifth dimension is something that for many people seems to be like a final destination, because this is where we can meet with all kinds of beings. We can meet with angels, we can meet with ascended masters, we can meet with spiritual guides, and we can also get healing, and we can heal. This dimension is amazing. I mentioned that the third one has time, has the subdimension of time. All the upper ones have no time at all. So we can access past and future and present. And in the fifth dimension, we connect with others. It's exchange of energy. So it is a collective mind. It often happens that during out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences or any type of experience that we are connecting with other beings that we have some kind of exchange of energy with, we can go into something that let's say angels are showing us and telling us about multitude of dimensions and different dimensions, and we can hear or experience tunnel of light and all kinds of incredible experiences can be there. But that collective mind is just that dimension. So psychic experiences, hearing, music, performance, dance, all that has to do with just the fifth dimension. This is where we get help. This is when we can heal, when we can heal others. But it's not the final result of Kundalini rising. So that's a misconception that I hear often. Oh yeah, I had also had Kundalini rising. I know what it is all about, and I saw these beings that showed me the way, and they helped me with this and that, and they were from another galaxy. They were Arcturians or Pleiadians or something. Well, perfect. It's awesome to have those experiences, and it certainly is expanding our consciousness and helping with spiritual growth, to know that these things are possible, like telepathy and psychic cognition is possible. But that's not spiritual enlightenment. The sixth dimension. Okay, one of the main misconceptions when we are talking about this image of the subtle body and chakras is that we are instantly thinking that we are body where those colored discs are. That's only the view from the third eye, from the sixth chakra. And by imagining everything that way, that we are supposed to work on these chakras as if they were those discs in our body, that's unfortunately a false belief. We need to approach chakras as the gates to the dimensions of perception, as an individual unit of consciousness, our individual spirit that connects, taps into all those different levels, all those different dimensions, and is able to get and receive and give. Just like with love, we can receive love. If we really receive love, we can give it. Here we can receive and give healing. We can help others, and others can help us. Not necessarily humans, although of course could be humans, but also other kinds of beings. When we get to the sixth dimension, it changes. This is something that has to do just with our own investigation into the depth of consciousness. And because religions are in there, gods as archetypes, all kinds of esoteric sciences are there, what is very easy to fall into is belief. Beliefs are actually a result of second and third chakra, so it's more an ego thing. And if we are dealing with religions, gods, and all kinds of systems that are esoteric systems like astrology, numerology, sacred geometry, then we can easily get closed into one of those worlds and believe that that's the only way things are. And that's why it's so hard to convince somebody who is of certain religious belief to change the belief and believe in another God. It's because there is certain lack of flexibility there. Those beliefs are very strong. As with all of these practices on each chakra, we need to go back to identifying our Kundalini, our individual unit of consciousness. Be deep inside, be there without anything that's on the outside, and then we can easier engage in self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is a practice that starts in the third chakra, but that chakra has to be quite clear for that. And then it moves up just by observing. And eventually when it gets to the sixth dimension, then we can use our intuition to ask questions and receive answers. It is very hard to do that with this mind full of thoughts, opinions, judgments, doubts, etc. We need to calm this mind down. We need to release a lot of unnecessary thoughts and concepts in order to be able to use self-inquiry. So that misconception here, first of all, is thinking that we are the body full of those colorful discs. And the second problem would be that we can get stuck in a belief system that has to do with esoteric sciences, with religions and religious dogmas. Seventh chakra. This is the other mind that thinks in a different way than this mind. This mind only observes and concludes by discern. The most common misconception that comes with development of the seventh chakra is that through intense meditation, some of us can experience opening of the sixth chakra. Just like with all of the upper chakras, we can experience opening of those chakras, but if it's just that one chakra that's opening, it can be very confusing and misleading, because we need to have our Kundalini be present everywhere in order to be balanced out. If we just have the seventh chakra open and our and it's not even our consciousness, it's just the open chakra, we can see the light, but then it goes away and then we're lost. We don't know what's going on. We don't know why this happened. For a moment, it was there, and then there is no full understanding. And the point is that this travel of Kundalini through each of those chakras, exploring each of the dimensions, and exiting through the crown chakra, it results in full understanding of what took place, of what life is about, of who we are, of how we are creating our reality, how we are creating our world, what is soul, who we are as an immortal soul, and so on. Once this is complete, then we are okay. But if just one of the chakras open, it often can cause problems. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for your participation. Hope to see you at the next event, and hope to see you in our orientation session or at the course. Thanks again. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye.